Oh, all righty, and welcome to your LSU Football Fix. I'm Preston Guy, staff writer of TigerBait.com. Had a few technical difficulties getting on air today. StreamYard was being a little odd for me. I don't know what was going on there, but we persevered. We worked through it, just like Brian Kelly did with this year's recruiting class. You see, one handed the best situation in the world with Ogeron, of course, being fired, not recently either. It was months in advance. Recruits knew LSU was going to be looking for a new coach and sat there while other schools went to go get him. And Brian Kelly's had to hit the recruiting trail hard. There's been some ups, there's been some downs. Today's going to be a little more unstructured of a show than I usually prepare for y'all, just because it's kind of our first off-season show, so to speak. Even though it's been the off-season for a while, until signing day hits for Tiger Bait, it's still the regular season. So we're going to talk about that. I'm all down to talk some Joe Burrow. I'm pretty hyped for the Super Bowl. Dennis Allen for the Saints. I'm excited for them. Got their new coach. But if y'all don't bring any questions, I'll just go down and we'll talk about this recruiting class here and what my thoughts are, more so than, is it good or bad? More composition, angles, what was going on with this. But first, I want to thank my sponsor, Tramonte's Meat and Seafood. They're located at the corner of Airline and Jefferson, and they have a really cool special. I'm about to hit a share screen here with them. Let's see here so that I can show you what they're running right now. Let's see. There we go. Let me get rid of Mike Scarborough there. Here's Tramonte's Meat and Seafood. Now, it's not the boiled crawfish. I asked him about it. He said not to promote it, although they do have it going on. I'm excited. I couldn't even get some for myself. But check this out, y'all. They're doing their Chairman's Reserve beef brisket, $2.99 a pound. Cannot beat that. Look how good this stuff is, man. Good meat. And of course, they're going to do the beef tenderloin for $24.99 a pound, which if you know your meat, that's pretty darn good. So that's what they're running right now. Y'all go check them out. Crawfish will be coming soon enough. Let's hear a little word from them, and then we'll dive on in. Of course, tonight we're going against LSU basketball. So we'll dive on in, get to your questions, and talk about the...
Tramonte's has meat. Tramonte's has seafood. Tramonte's has much more. Tailgating and homegating platters. Huge wine and liquor selection. Beer and all the spices you need. Chairman Reserve and Wagyu meats. Ribeye rolls, shrimp rolls, kebabs. 20 flavors of sausage for the grill. Daily lunch specials and game processing. On-site catering also available. Good meat ain't cheap and cheap meat ain't good. Visit Tramontes.com.
Tramonte's Meat and Seafood for making everything we do here at the LSU Football Fix possible. So last week, I talked to y'all about how there were 6 players up for grabs with Brian Kelly and LSU. And of course, I said, look, I expect honestly, at the time, and these things move very fast in recruiting. At the time, I thought LSU was kind of the favorite, if not co-favorite, for 6 out of 6. Although, like I said, in recruiting, it's just so rare that you go 6 for 6 or 5 for 5 in anything because it's so fickle. We're talking about teenagers. Teenagers usually don't even know exactly where they're going. So I was predicting, 4.5, 4, something like that. And I said it would be problematic if LSU got 2, but one of them wasn't a guy like a Harold Perkins or Jacoby Matthews. Now, he missed on Jacoby Matthews. Texas A&M put up a monstrous effort. It was going until the bitter end, and Texas A&M got their guy. That, of course, is 5-star safety out of Ponchatoula, and that one hurts. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to sit here and say, okay, he's overrated or what. No, he's a good player. But Harold Perkins, I've said this all year, and this is not like a biased thing coming out here, guys, because for most of the year, I've assumed he's been a Texas A&M guy. Although LSU's been there, I've kind of assumed he was going to Texas A&M. I've talked to some Texas A&M guys, and they are just wowed by this kid. A lot of people consider him the best recruit in the country. And he very well may be. I think that, and because especially at a position of need, you gotta love bringing in Harold Perkins. Barry Barbier. The question: will the tight end from Notre Dame end up? He's of course talking about. All right, now if I mess up his name here, I'm sorry, but George George Takacs. Okay, tight end from Notre Dame. I don't have any specific insight on him, but I do know LSU will be interested. Brian Kelly hasn't really put the full court press on bringing in any of his Notre Dame guys to LSU thus far, like we saw at Lincoln Riley at USC. So it's kind of one of those wait and see type approaches with them. But of course, I mean, as your five heads mentioning, there's going to be lots of schools in on him. Which brings me to my next point. So one of the problems with particularly LSU's offensive line here of recent has been the lack of your recruiting class should mirror a football starting lineup, generally speaking, right? And in recent years, it's been okay. But you'll notice, especially in the offensive line, there's some serious positions of need. 2021 was a very good recruiting class, ranked in the top 5, 6, whatever you want to call it. 2 offensive linemen, though. You think that was a problem this season? Yeah, that was a huge problem, man. So 2 offensive linemen. The year before that, 4 offensive linemen signed, which is generally okay. You typically want 5 or 6 guys in that recruiting class for offensive line, because that's roughly a starting lineup. You can't. Offensive line isn't like wide receiver or tight end or even almost any position of defense where you have to have 5 offensive linemen who can play. Not much wiggle room there. I mean, really, like, what are you going to do? Like, put a tight end in or something? No, you can't. You have to have it. There are 2 position groups that you're just going to have a set number of guys, and it's quarterback and offensive line. You're going to have one quarterback and one quarterback only on the field, unless you've got some sort of weird dual quarterback system. But that's so rarely is that ideal. But you're going to have 5 offensive linemen. Almost any other position group is flexible. So it's so important. In fact, I'd argue that that's the one position group where it's just the most important to make that progress. You gotta bring in the guys. This year, Brian Kelly did work to keep the guys on board that mattered. Walker Howard, of course, outstanding. Will Campbell, but also Brian Kelly brought in 2 more offensive linemen to a class that was already pretty strong with 4. But just adding those extra 2 bodies gives LSU a lot of wiggle room. What if you have 2 busts? What if you have 2 guys that bust? Well, when you have 4 guys in your class, if 2 of them are busts, that's a major problem. It's a major problem. When you have 6, you still get 4 quality offensive linemen. Hey, y'all do me a favor. If you're watching this video tonight, hit that like button and give me some comments. Ask me some questions, anything you want to go. We're going to go a little unstructured. I want to go with your commentary. And of course, we're competing with LSU basketball. So if y'all don't mind hitting that share button, share it to your Facebook group, share it to your Twitter, share wherever you are watching. Hit that share button and let's get a little following going. I'm sure we'll get a lot of replay views though, but hit that like, hit that share for us tonight. Anyways, the composition of this recruiting class: 4 linebackers, major position of need. You might be switching to a 4 linebacker front, although from what I understand, Matt House likes to run a multiple look. So linebacker, that's huge, man, to bring in 4 of them. Absolutely huge. Not to mention the guys you're bringing in are pretty quality game, like West Weeks. That's going to be a transfer portal guy out of Virginia. Quality player. Will be ready to give you quality snaps fairly quickly. Colby Fields, who just got added. Although Colby Fields is a little undersized, 6'1", 205-ish. He's going to be a speedy backer who can maybe come in and give some depth. Now, the one backer who I'd say you probably want to give some time to develop, Demario Tolan, who's, of course, in that 6'1", 205 build as well. Probably give him some time. Probably give him some time to develop. We'll just have to see. And then, of course, Harold Perkins, who is an absolute beast. Be a little thicker, a little stronger. Could be a guy you plug in early in some quality reps. And we'll see. We'll see, man. I would expect toward the end of the season, I'd be surprised if Harold Perkins does not work his way into that starting lineup. American Patriot, everybody smash the like button. Appreciate y'all. And of course, remember, Mike Scarborough makes fun of me anytime my videos don't get more likes. Now, my like got more likes than his last week because of y'all, but also because he didn't do his show last week because his laptop went out and had to buy a new one and just didn't have the wherewithal to get the new laptop up and rolling. So if you want to be kind enough to give Mike Scarborough a super chat tonight, I'm sure he'd greatly appreciate that. He does have his laptop in today. Just got it back, and he's just breaking it in, making sure everything works, and he'll be up and rolling soon enough. He should be doing a show this week. So we will see about that. Anyways, offensive lineman, you signed 6. I think that's such a big deal. It's not even funny. Walker Howard, probably the best quarterback in the country you'd want to bring in for LSU in terms of fit and what I like. I mean, he's an extremely quality player. 4 defensive linemen. Look, I'd probably want one more because, of course, this year you get 32 guys. But if you're going to run a 30 front, if that's the end goal to run 3 defensive linemen, then maybe it'd be best to stick with 4. We'll see. 7 defensive backs. And that's one of the things I love is defensive back, even though they've signed some DBs over the years. I mean, they've signed, 2021, they signed 5 DBs. And the year before that, they signed 4. That's 9 DBs, which is about what you want out of 2 years, roughly. You still were, you just had so much turnover, so much attrition at that position group. So good. Bring in 7. Not only you bring in 7, but you bring in some game ready guys. We're talking about, you realize you brought in 2 SEC West starting defensive backs. Greg Brooks, cornerback, Arkansas. Joe Fouché, who we had on this show earlier. Those are quality SEC starters right there. And then you talk about guys like Mecky Williams-Garner out of ULL who, may be able to step up into that role and give some quality depth. We'll see. I also hoping this is the year we see Sage Ryan step up. He's dealt with some injury stuff that's got him a little plagued. We'll see. I think, but by the way, there's a lot of guys on LSU's roster in that category of has been good, but hasn't quite stepped into those big shoes yet. We'll just have to see. Hakeem Batiste brought up another one in that exact category. Will Savion Jones get some run this year? And that's the hope. That's the hope. Of course, none of these players have seen the field under the new coaching staff. They have not gotten in pads yet. We're going to have to wait and see. It's been so much turnover. Savion Jones was a guy me and Mike Scarborough were very high on. In fact, Mike Scarborough was saying he might be the best player in the state last year. And that's, I didn't quite think so. I thought Mason Smith was, but we'll see. Now, Mason Smith is a guy I'm hoping and expecting to step up and be a true star, not just show flashes of it, but a true down in, down out. Now, Sebastian Gonzalez, great comment here. This was actually the next position group I was going to talk about with this recruiting class. You went 0 for 3 in state. Tramonte Citizen, not coming. ATN, not coming. Le'Veon Moss, 0 for 3. 0 for 3 on all those dudes. But you did get Noah Kane, who's probably more game one ready because he's been a college player for 3 years. This is his senior season. He was formerly a 5-star player, but hasn't really panned out, battled with injuries and whatnot at Penn State. A true smash mouth back. He definitely improves the room, but a good bit. And ideally, John Emery Jr. is going to come off and regain his eligibility and give you some quality reps, if not be your number one back. So your number one and number two should be those two guys, Noah Kane and John Emery Jr., but never count out Corey Kiner. Corey Kiner kind of was put into a big spotlight last year because, Tyrion Davis-Price was struggling so mightily early. And I don't really think it was Tyrion Davis-Price either, his fault either. That offensive line early in the season was just abysmal. But with that, it's in pretty good shape. Bradford. I was about to call him something complete, but yeah, the Bradford kid you're hoping will come in and be good. Armoni Goodwin is another one to provide some depth. I mean, that's a pretty deep backfield. I would like to see backfield by committee and see them eventually kind of take over. That would be pretty nice, I think. But do I think there's a guy who's going to be like that Leonard Fournette, that Darius Geis? Not really. And I'm not even really certain there's going to be a guy who is, now hear me out when I say this, second half of 2022 Tyrion Davis-Price. Because in the second half of 2021, in the second half of the season, Tyrion Davis-Price played as well as him. I mean, he broke the LSU rushing record in Florida. Maybe we just need to play Dan Mullen for 13 games. That'd do the trick. But anyways, yeah, I think the running back room is going to be good. Good. Not excellent. Like a Danny Etling good. Like a nothing's wrong. Take care of business. Nothing you're going to do is going to be spectacular, but good. And lots of them. Lots of them. And in fact, that's generally the theme of what I look at what most of Brian Kelly's done this year. Good. Lots and lots of good. Handful of great things. I thought Harold Perkins, absolutely grand slam. Great job. That's a tough recruit to sign, and you got him. Great. Miles Frazier, freshman All-American left tackle. Great. I mean, absolutely huge recruit to bring in. I mean, we're talking about a guy who will probably be your starting left tackle game one. Miles Frazier. Maybe the biggest offensive lineman recruit on the board that you could bring in. Huge. Great move by him. Frank Wilson, bringing him in as your associate head coach, running back coach. Great hire. Most of the other stuff I've seen out of him, Denbrock, good hire. You're good. Should be a quality coach. Matt House, good hire. Got some things I can't ignore. Maybe both those guys potential to be great. Pretty sure they're good. None of them are like, so look at the coordinator hires from last year. It's like Jake Peets and, man, I'm already blanking on his name. But anyways, both rookie coordinators. And it was a little questionable that Okay, so you had a lot of pressure to replace Ensminger and a lot of pressure to get Bo Pelini out of here and greatly improve these defense. And you went to the NFL to find position coaches and put them in their first role as coordinators. That was your grand master plan. Both these guys experienced. Both these guys are, proven play callers at that. With some great moments, like for Matt House, he's had some great moments as a DC. Like what he did at Kentucky, what his final season at Kentucky was outstanding. He missed his first Super Bowl at Kansas City this year. Of course, one game short of it, but alas, he missed it. So some potential to be great, but I just look at him as good. It's not like when they hired Dave Aranda, I said, yo, that's a big time hire. That's a difference in the program. But the thing is that if all of these moves are good moves, a lot of good moves is how you build a good football team that's ready to compete quicker than you think. Deion Smith, that's Hakeem Batiste asking that. I don't have any update, but the word, I mean, he's been in the transfer portal a while. I don't think he's necessarily enrolled right now, but stay tuned. Stay tuned. There's always a lot more behind the scenes going on there, but the longer he goes without announcing a transfer, the better you feel about him. And he certainly has all the talent you want. Let's see here. Ooh, James Phillips, that's a really good question. I'm looking to answer and kind of, but you know what I'm going to do first? I'm going to thank Dead Soxy for making my show possible tonight. Dead Soxy's doing their Valentine's Day sale. And of course, Dead Soxy, y'all, they do have the Joe Burrow socks. Get ready for the Super Bowl. Now, I can't tell you if they would ship on time or not. Last week they would have. But we'll see about this week. But I'll tell you what you can get is 30% off site-wide if you use code TIGERBAIT. Fall in love with something special for this Valentine's Day. Fall in love with your pair of Dead Soxy socks. They will rock your socks off. Of course, I like to show people up close. Very quality packaging. I tell you, this tag is super silky smooth, man. Plenty of LSU designs. I always tell people the little glue drops on there that keep the sock from going down your ankle. Super soft, very thick, will keep your toes warm. I mean, best socks I've ever owned. No lie on that. But anyways, back to the show. Y'all punch that like and share button as we dive deeper into this. James Phillip, is LSU still looking for a center in the transfer portal? Is there someone on roster that LSU current staff has selected for that position? That's a great question, James Phillips. And I'm going to tell you this. We'd like to have that answer already, but we didn't really get a press conference from Brian Kelly yet, basically since he got the job, to ask that question to. So we don't really know what's on their mind. We don't really know for sure. What I do know is that if there were a quality center who, say, got beat out in the spring and was looking to transfer, that's one of the good things about only hitting on 2 of those guys. In fact, if you were to hit on all 6, I'm not sure that's the position you wanted to be. You wanted at least 3 or 4 spots going into spring. Well, now you've got 4. That's right where you want to be. So wait for these spring battles to play out. And if there's a starting caliber, like SEC starting caliber, trained center out there, yeah, you bet your sweet ass they'd go after a center. Absolutely, they would bring him in. Now, as far as a center on their roster, you don't exactly know where their mind is with that. I do know there's a couple guys who have played center. I'm trying to pull the roster here to pull the name because I'm blanking on the name here, and y'all know how I am with pulling lots of names here. Let's see here. Let's see here. The guy I keep on highlighting that again, I'm in the minority, but I could really, really see him pulling it off is Emory Jones. Very coordinated, very nimble offensive lineman out of Catholic High. He's played left tackle. He's got great feet. I really could see him doing that, but I don't know that they've talked to anybody about that yet. Um, it's just it's just one of those things. I do know Charles Turner is a guy that is not is they haven't really looked at him as ready to play center yet. No, I haven't seen that yet. I mean, last we heard of him, he really was not ready to go. Marlon Martinez is a guy who's played some center at high school level, and of course LSU is bringing in center prospect out of Lafayette, um, whose name I am. Oh, man, I'm y'all. There's so many names go. And look, let me tell you, this has been the absolute wildest year for just names because there's so many guys in and out. I'm just like, blah. But anyways, Fitzgerald West is his name, out of Lafayette Christian. In fact, he's played center, but he's more of a project type center player. So there's 4 guys to keep an eye out on at center. None of them are like guys that you really feel comfortable with if they were your starting center, though. They all have some work and development to show you. And look, there's Hakeem Batiste, the correction. Thank you. And look, guys, I promise you, I know the names. I know the roster and names and stuff. I'm just blah, man. Whole new coaching staff. I mean, basically half a new roster next year. It's just been a lot, man. It's been a long year. Woo! 7 DBs, man. I love it, though. I love it. You're basically done at DB. I can't really think of I can't see a world where they take another DB. Now, a position I can see them taking more at is wide receiver. I could see them adding a wide receiver. Now, you might say, oh, LSU stacked at wide receiver. That's the one position they don't need. Well, you've only signed 2 wide receivers, and one of them doesn't have much eligibility left. He's coming from Kyron Lacey. He's coming from ULL there. And his best season at ULL, he's had about under 400 yards. Let's put it like that. And then you're signing Landon Ibieta. So neither one of those guys are, none of them are Shaz Preston. None of them are an Aaron Anderson. None of them are elite, top-notch receivers, but they should provide some quality reps for you. Don't get me wrong. Good players. And players who want to be here. That's another big deal about those guys. But like I said, one of the problems with the recruiting classes Ogeron brought in was they didn't have enough bodies at certain positions. One of the things I look at, man, the running back room was really thin for LSU in 2021. Guess what? In 2020, you signed 1 running back. Now you signed 3 in 2021, but all those guys had to fight to get back in. You need at least one. I think you need 2 running backs every year because you're going to use 2 running backs in any given year, no matter what. And like I said, you need to field a starting lineup. So at least 3 receivers every year. That's my philosophy. That's what I believe. You got 1 tight end. I assume for the Denbrock system, you're going to want another tight end, which brings me to, of course, this question. We're going to get a little rehash question. The tight end and the Notre Dame transfer portal. Like I said, they're in on him, but a lot of schools are in on him. We'll have to see. He should be making a decision here within the next couple weeks. Let's see here. Is Josh White, Antoine Samp, Philip Webb going to get some reps at linebacker this year? That's a very good question because now you've got a lot of guys who are going to be competing for those reps at linebacker. And then the other question is, okay, what if the defensive ends are you going to convert to an outside edge rushing linebacker? Is Quincy Wiggins going to be a 3-4 outside rusher, or are you going to keep him a defensive end? A lot of questions about that. So, in regards to those guys, I mean, look, I mean, you also got Greg Penn there. You also got Mike Jones Jr., who ain't going nowhere. Josh White's a guy I assume will have to crack in and get some reps. But now you're bringing in Wes Weeks. I assume Wes Weeks will be a little behind some of those guys. You also bringing in Harold Perkins, who I think you're going to have trouble keeping Harold Perkins off the field. A lot of trouble. Colby Fields is a guy I think could take some time. He's only got one. He's a sophomore and he can redshirt still. So we'll see about that. So I'm going to defer in a lot of these questions, y'all, until we see spring ball. Going to be a little too early to tell. And of course, we haven't heard Brian Kelly talk about it yet. Brian Kelly's probably taking a lot of time evaluating his own roster, making these same decisions. So very good question. Samp's a guy I couldn't see not getting some sort of if there's 4 linebacker positions, I can't see him not being in the top 8 linebackers. I'll put it to you like that. Troy Davis, why not get another running back from the transfer portal? Troy Davis, I can tell you that with LSU going 0 for 3 on the Louisiana running backs and no freshman running back coming in, that's wide receiver and running back are going to be 2 positions where you're going to want to bring someone in. And of course, ideally the hope is with the post spring stuff is that spring ball turns out, position battles, whatever, big drama of some sort, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And you get a very quality kid coming in. Yeah, they would take a running back and they should take a running back because you've only got one running back. I'm looking at this and positions I could see them going after and just waiting to see. Quarterback, I know for a fact they'd be fine taking another quarterback. Because while you've got Miles Brennan back, he's not exactly been the staple of health. You kind of have to count him as half a body because he's just so injury prone. Now, if he's there and he can start all season, that's perfect. Have him be your senior starter, hold the reins this season while Walker Howard and Nussmeier develop it up. But ideally, you'd like Nussmeier and Walker Howard to be taking a back seat, spending some time developing and learning before you just throw them out there. So yeah, they probably would want a quarterback. We'll just see. We'll see if they can bring one in. Defensive line, although they got some very good defensive linemen, including Quincy Wiggins, who some people recently have ranked as high as 5 stars. And I like him a lot. Quincy Wiggins is going to be a guy, though. He got an injury at his All-American game. Going to be a guy who needs a little time. Ty'G Hill is more of a project player who's going to need a little time before he can make an immediate impact, though. Let's see, who else did they bring in at defensive line? Mekhi Wingo was a guy from Missouri. Could see him making pretty darn quick impact. So I could definitely see them bringing in another defensive lineman, especially I don't know what Matt House is thinking. Matt House might not have an idea yet of whether he's going to run more of a 4-man or a 3-man front as his primary D yet. He might not know. So wide receiver, tight end, running back, those are positions. At those 3 positions, you've got a combined 4 players. Those are your pass catchers, y'all. That's all of your pass catchers. And you've got 4. And to be quite frank, None of the four do I have a super high level of confidence that I have the most confidence in Noah Kane. And then Mason Taylor should be a quality tight end eventually. He's a little thin right now, needs some time, but I don't think Mason Taylor's a guy who's going to come in day one like, yo, that's a freak of nature. Needs some time. Needs some time to develop. That's why that tight end would be absolutely massive from Notre Dame. I don't want to say his name, Jakok, because I'm probably butchering it and someone's mama's really mad at me for butchering it. Anyways, no, he would be a huge deal to bring in. So those are the positions I'm watching: quarterback, D-line, tight end, running back. And if you don't get two of those skill position guys on offense, maybe you take one on the chin this recruiting class, because we've seen you can lose depth very, very quickly. And to that end, ideally Brian Kelly will do a better job managing the roster and managing attrition to where you don't have to rely on new names coming in. James Phillips with another very good question. Is Walker Howard going to miss spring surgery due to his hand surgery? He should come in the back half of the spring. Should come in the back half. And it was one of those nerve issues where they kept on waiting to see if it heals on its own. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It's the exact same surgery Drew Brees got, and then it just was looking like it wasn't going to heal, and they decided to bite the bullet and do it now. So due to that and the leg injury, there is going to be no rush to get Walker Howard on the field. No rush. So he'll be in the back half of spring ball. So we'll see. And I'm going to tell you that. The other thing to consider here, so Miles Brennan's coming off injury. Walker Howard's coming off injury. The only quarterback who's not is Garrett Nussmeier. So that in particular is a reason why getting a transfer quarterback will be huge. It'll be absolutely massive for LSU, because, I mean, 2/3 of your quarterback room right now is a little banged up. In fact, right now, you've got one quarterback who can play football. That's it. Garrett Nussmeier. That is it. And he's a freshman. That's right. He's going to be a freshman again, y'all. He did redshirt this year because he sat out the bowl game. So, yeah, they're going to want a quarterback. I would assume they're not going to take like a body quarterback, like a guy who's just there. Wait, they're going to want a quality quarterback, because you could have taken a bunch of quarterbacks in the transfer portal. I mean, a bunch of quarterbacks, but they want a quality player, one who could come in and play some serviceable reps if need be. Very good question there about Walker Howard. All right, before we move on, I'm going to thank my sponsor, Tramonte's Meat and Seafood. Y'all make sure to go check it out. Their whole beef brisket, $2.99 a pound, Chairman's Reserve. Good stuff. You're going to impress people for that Super Bowl party. Y'all go check them out. Corner of Jefferson and Airline, just behind. It's actually up Old Jefferson, just a bit past Airline, right behind Parkview Baptist. So y'all go check them out. Support our sponsor. Support local business.
Tramonte's has meat. Tramonte's has seafood. Tramonte's has much more. Tailgating and homegating platters. Huge wine and liquor selection. Beer and all the spices you need. Chairman Reserve and Wagyu meats. Ribeye rolls, shrimp rolls, kebabs. 20 flavors of sausage for the grill. Daily lunch specials and game processing. On-site catering also available. Good meat ain't cheap and cheap meat ain't good. Visit Tramontes.com.
And thank you, Tramonte's Meat and Seafood. Y'all, I still can't believe LSU knew offensive line was a big position of need last year, and they signed 2 offensive linemen. 2. This is why we were at where we were at. Let's see here. Any comments that I missed? There were some good ones. Let's see here. Scott Tron. Mike needs to come off vacation. Yeah, that's what I told him today. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. This is a comment I saw earlier from Lowkey315. Do you think the NCAA will eventually enforce a salary cap for NIL deals to keep the playing field level. Low key, I'm gonna tell you this. They're gonna do something to provide some structure. They kind of had their hand forced and just said, "Yeah, anything's fine. Let's just whatever. These are the rules." And honestly, the rules are a little impossible to enforce right now. I can tell you one of the major things. Well, I mean, there's basically like two guidelines. Like one is it must be quid pro quo. You have to render a service for the NIL deal. You can't just do it. You can't just give money. Number two, can't be in exchange for play or selecting a certain school. It has to be one of those deals where it's for you, the athlete, regardless of where you go. Now, I mean, the first one's pretty easy to adhere. Okay, so you're out eating one day, take a picture, we post it to our social media, boom. That's exchange of services for for compensation. I don't know how you regulate can incentivize it. I mean, how do you monitor those private conversations? And then to that end, how do you say, okay, athlete, I'm promising you $5 million if you come to Texas A&M? They sign the dotted line. They're at Texas A&M. Yay. Now where's my 5 million? Oh, well, actually, we reanalyzed our budget. We can't do that. Sorry. What do you do about that? I don't know. There needs to be some sort of structure in place. I would assume something with much, much more structure comes through. As far as a cap, I'm not sure we do see that. And I want you to understand that this is not a unique concept to sports. Like, what's the level playing field for major market NBA teams or NFL teams? Well, can't Los Angeles outbid a mid-market St. Louis every time? Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, usually it benefits the major markets. That's just the truth. That's the reality of the world. It's usually not a level playing field. So I don't know about that, but I do know that eventually, if these athletes are getting paid, there's going to be the debate of, okay, are they employees? Are they NCAA employees now? Which I'm sure the NCAA will subsequently argue, no, they are not. They are self-employed businesses that just happen to play football for us. They're just doing their own thing, which I tend to agree with, that they aren't employees, but there'll be lots of stipulations if they are defined as employees. So lots coming there. I'm gonna just tell y'all, I can't remember a time where college football needed more reform than it needs right now. The bowl games are pretty pointless, which I think feeds into opt-outs. I think the playoffs themselves have been pretty good. Most people are popular of it, but problem is, who cares about a New Year's Six bowl anymore? Has anybody ever said, "Wow, that New Year's Six bowl was awesome. We made a New Year's Six bowl." Like, not really. It's not the same. It's not the same gravitas as a BCS bowl. It just isn't. Nobody cares. I remember LSU made the Sugar Bowl in 06. Man, we were all excited. LSU was in a BCS bowl? What? Because everything was just a bowl game. Now it's like, if you're not in the playoff, who cares? It's just in that sweet spot, just there. Now, if you expanded the playoffs, I'm not saying the bowl games would be worth more, but there'd be more postseason games that are meaningful. So maybe that's the solution. Mike Scarborough wants to go back to the BCS. I don't think he's going to be very well supported with that. I don't think he's going to be well supported at all. I think people would freak out if you took the playoff away at this point. But anyways, bowl games don't matter. Early signing day, which I'm going to take my lumps on this because I was a big proponent of. I said, sure, why not? Go ahead, give it to him. I mean, we're seeing lots of problems with, Gunnar Keel. I mean, he left LSU at the altar. That sucks. But we've seen more problems with the coaches leaving the schools at the altar because there's now pressure to abandon your team and go get 90% of your recruiting class signed away for early signing day. Too much pressure. Honestly, what Brian Kelly did to Notre Dame is not like a good thing for college football as a whole. I mean, he left a fifth-ranked Notre Dame team with a chance at the playoff. So we'll see about that. We'll see about that. Lots of reform needed in college football. By the way, shout out to that Saints helmet. I was hoping Eric Bieniemy would get a try for the Saints. I really like what he's done with the Chiefs. I get the argument of, okay, well, those guys are freaks of nature, but they don't really the rules of football don't apply to the Kansas City Chiefs a lot of times because of just how incredible Mahomes is, and now you Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Tyreek Hill. I get it. But I wanted to see Eric Bieniemy. But Dennis Allen, like what he's done with the defense. I'm typically against retread coaches in college because typically if a coach was fired from a Power 5 program at a college, there was a reason for that. It's not really the case necessarily in the NFL. I mean, bad ownership. You don't have a franchise quarterback. It's pretty much, if you have a bad quarterback, it's pretty much impossible to have a winning season in the NFL. There's just a lot of factors that can hold you down more. And of course, Oakland wasn't exactly a great place. I understand he was 8-28, but I think Dennis Allen can come through and surprise us. We'll see. Guys, if you have any more questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. Please hit that like and share button for us to support the show. I'm going to thank Tramonte one more time for making what we do at the LSU Football Fix possible. And we'll get back to any questions you might have.
Tramonte's has meat. Tramonte's has seafood. Tramonte's has much more. Tailgating and homegating platters. Huge wine and liquor selection. Beer and all the spices you need. Chairman Reserve and Wagyu meats. Ribeye rolls, shrimp rolls, kebabs. 20 flavors of sausage for the grill. Daily lunch specials and game processing. On-site catering also available. Good meat ain't cheap and cheap meat ain't good. Visit Tramontes.com.
By the way, shout out Will Wade and company for breaking out of a nasty slump today, getting a W over Texas A&M. Let's see if I've missed anything. There it is. Troy Davis. Tigers win. Hey, look, man, that's awesome. I'm perplexed with this basketball team, y'all. I mean, I don't understand how you can start out 15-1, look so good, and I get the coincidence that Xavier Pinson went down and it seems like everything fell apart, but seems like there should be something else there. Hopefully they bounce back, man, because I've enjoyed Will Wade's tenure at LSU. A lot of people I know and respect opinions still think Will Wade's a great coach, but hoping to see the boys bounce back. Well, guys, look, to recap everything, recruiting class very good. It's hard to evaluate this recruiting class with a typical recruiting cycle. I'm gonna share a point I've made in the past. Let's see here. Tweeter, share. So always told people stars do matter. They're not everything, but they're something. If you try to look at a recruit's star rating and determine everything, well, they're 5 stars, there should be a first round draft pick, you're probably going to have a bad time. Probably 1 in 10 they're going to be right on. But the thing is, everybody misses with recruiting rankings. They see the headlines. The majority of Super Bowl starters were 3-star or below. Wow, I guess stars don't matter, because if stars mattered, you have so many 5 stars, they'd be dominating at this level, right? Well, the thing is, people make this assumption with forgetting there's less 5 stars. There's only 35 stars every year, 32, whatever you want to call it. Okay. There's about 300 4 stars every year, and 2 1,000 2 and 3 star players. So when you get to a point that, I mean, there's like 60 or 70 times as many. Let's put it like this. There's 15 times, I'm sorry, 150 times as many 2 and 3 star players as there are 5-star players. You mean to tell me that those, I mean, of course there's going to be more of those guys. If they have a tenth of the, if they are 1/10 as likely to make it, they will still outnumber you 15-1. That's how odds work. So the thing that always, and this is last year's draft class, and I'm sure it's about the same for the 2021 draft class, but if it isn't, I kind of wouldn't even want to go down there and evaluate it anyways, because COVID was a wonky year. So 19 of 31, 19 players in the draft 2020 were 5-star players. Well, you take the 16 and 17 classes, on average had 35-star players, 62%. Same concept, 4-star, 73 were drafted, 23.5% drafted. Well, that's about a third, a little more than a third of the ranking. So, you would think 4-star players, there's 300 of them, roughly, most of them should be getting drafted. Well, that's with exact evaluations, but when we don't see exact evaluations and really any level of evaluation. 3-star players, 6%, and 2-star players, 1.6%. So you can see there's a correlation there. You definitely want more of those NFL players on your team. So you should be happy about Harold Perkins. You shouldn't be sitting there saying, oh, well, Harold Perkins, who cares about star ratings? Well, you can see there's strong correlation. So even though they're not everything, there's something. All right. For the stars don't matter crowd, look at Bama and Georgia. Okay. Last 3 recruiting. This is your national championship. And quite frankly, there's a huge drop off after these teams. Average ranking of 1.8. 1.8 was their average ranking. The very highest they could have is 1.5. I mean, y'all, there's 2 teams and they rank below 2. That's insane. So to me, it's just been very, I mean, the stars aren't perfect. The recruiting rankings aren't perfect, but they are a pretty good indicator. They show some pretty strong correlations as to what kind of quality player you are. So my point in that is when you see a Harold Perkins coming in, 5-star linebacker, rejoice. Pretty good odds he's going to be a pretty good player. A lot of these things. Now, that's not to say the 3-star guy can't be, and hopefully if your coach is doing good evaluation, there should be a few head scratchers because he's evaluated better than us recruiting service people have. Let's see here. Super Bowl prediction, y'all. So I got the Caesars Sporting Bet app majigger because it's finally legal in Louisiana. Y'all, I put my first bet on Joe Burrow last week, and I'm putting my second bet on Joe Burrow this week. I took the Bengals straight up, and I took the Bengals plus 4.5. So give me the points and give me the straight up dub. I'll let you have. I mean, I believe it. I do. And the fact that, Joe Burrow just has that it mentality, and Jamar Chase is a freak, and that defense is just stingy for Cincinnati. And nobody likes Eli Apple. And it's just that mojo. And it's not like the Rams are this daunting opponent. I mean, it's not like you're looking at the 14-2 Indianapolis Colts with Peyton Manning coming into town. Matthew Stafford, good quarterback. I mean, Odell Beckham Jr. got there midseason. He's been solid. Cooper Kupp, good player. The only thing that really scares me about the Rams is, man, that defensive line is going to rough up the Bengals offensive line. I don't know. Joe Burrow just has it. He can just tune into another drive and make the plays when they matter, keep his teams focused. The intangibles are off the charts. I'm not betting against the Bengals. to win one football game? Hell no, I'm not betting against the Bengals. So yeah, I took the Bengals. American Patriot. I don't trust the star ratings. They are 4 stars until Bama gets them, then magically become 5 stars. An American Patriot. I've talked to people in the know, including, my guy Mike Scarborough, about, the Bama bump. It's not a new concept at all. And I think sometimes it does happen. I get where you're coming from. The thing worth noting, and I get that there's a certain recruiting service that is owned by a Bama alum, and a lot of people are very aware of that. However, most people cite that recruiting service's rankings, and what they mean is the composite, which is just a composite of all the major industry rankings, which, by the way, is going to have a new ranking competitor in there soon enough, if not already incorporated into it. And Aaron Anderson is the one that stands out this year, and I saw that. I'm gonna tell you this. The thing is Aaron Anderson was very underrated to begin with. Do I think he was 5-star? I don't know, but he was close when I saw him in person. He was close. Definitely not a 3-star. I'll tell you that much. I get where you're coming from on the Bama bump, but ultimately, these guys go to Alabama, and Alabama somehow magically produces the most NFL talent and magically are in the playoffs every single year or in the national championship. And they've now won, 6 national championships since Nick Saban arrived 12 years ago, 13 years ago. So 6 out of 13, they've won half of the national championships. So I have a little bit of trouble believing that, the Bama bump is, I think there's certain cases where maybe a guy was embellished a little bit, but these guys, I mean, they can be quality players. You know who stands out to me? Ishmael Sobcher was a 5-star guy all the whole way of his recruiting service. 5-star, comes down to the bitter end. And right before signing day, dip him down to a 4-star. And I think deservedly so. Me and Mike Scarborough were talking about it back then. Like, he's more of a big body kid who just dominated people who just couldn't deal with a bigger guy. He didn't really play with technique. He didn't play with leverage. He didn't have a high motor, but he's still a good player that you want. But 5-star, I never saw a 5-star out of him. He got bumped down to 4-star toward the end. And guess where he signed with? Alabama. Now, obviously he deserved to be dropped down because he didn't really pan out at Alabama, and now he's transferring, and I wish him the best. But I have a little bit of trouble believing in the Bama bump because, yes, they have the number 1 recruiting class every year. I think they also have like a top 2 or 3 team every single year. And do I believe that, the recruiting services just, want to bump every Bama kid up because it looks good for the program? And then magically Nick Saban's just such an incredible coach that the players just play out of their minds good, far beyond what they actually were as talent players. No, I don't. I think if there's a Bama bump, it's a lot less significant than you think. And and look, I'm not doing this to like bash you. I'm just providing my opinion. This is the information that I can't ignore about the star ratings. I can't ignore that a 5-star player has a 60% chance of being drafted and a 3-star has a 6% chance of getting drafted. That's more than 10 times more likely to be drafted. Now, on the other hand, everybody, like I said, everybody points out, okay, well, there's more 3-stars in the NFL, more. Yes, look, there were more 3-stars drafted than any other position, any other star rating in that draft. 110. Okay. 110 3-star guys and only 25-star guys drafted. So a lot of people see that and say, okay, well, stars don't matter, but this is the number we're forgetting. There were 1,801 more 3 stars than the 30 5 stars. You're taking a very tiny, isolated group of 5-star guys, and you're saying, these are the guys we're most certain are elite. And they're roughly right that 2 out of 3 on those guys, that 2 out of 3 of those guys go on to be NFL players. Or are drafted players, I should say, which is, ultimately your goal as a program. 4 stars, they're right about, 23 and a half, about 1 in 4. They're right that, those were guys who were going to be drafted. They were less confident in those guys. And then the 3 stars, you can see 94% of the time, those guys don't get drafted. And 2 stars is 98.4% of the time, those guys don't get drafted. Are there outliers? Absolutely. So that's it. And look, guys, I mean, there's no right answer per se, but that is my analytical breakdown of it, is that it's heavily, our opinions tend to be heavily influenced by, I don't want to say cherry pick, but like outliers, like notable outliers that are very visible and we notice it and it's newsworthy that we hear about because it is a rare or whatever, against the ordinary, I should say. So it becomes news events and we hear them more often. They stand out to us. But the fact of the matter is, it's not really newsworthy when you see 4-star guy drafted 3rd round. That's what you should see out of a 4-star guy. But we don't hear about it because that is what you should hear. That's just my take. Let's see here. James Phillips, if offensive linemen like Thomas, Hill, Turner, Perry don't make progress this spring, LSU is going to need another offensive lineman out of the transfer portal to provide depth. Well, that's the thing I love is, and yeah, those guys, I mean, this kind of make or break year for those guys. Because you really haven't gotten anything. Now, Thomas came on strong toward the end of the year last year. I have high hopes for him. Thomas is one of the very few players I was high on coming out of high school who did not impress me early on in his career. I'm telling you, it is uncanny when I'm on a sideline and I see guys. I thought Clyde Edwards-Helaire was incredible. He was darn near unstoppable at Catholic High when he was healthy. I thought he was going to be incredible, and it turned out he was pretty darn good. Derek Stingley Jr., another guy. I mean, he just locked down half the field. That's the best high school player I've seen in person ever. But anyways, the good news is there, James Phillips, they did bring in 6. I mean, technically, you could field an offensive line with 6 guys. And in fact, let's break down what this starting offensive line would look like. Will Campbell, right tackle. Okay, I mean, true freshman, probably going to have some lumps, but boy's got some talent. Emory Jones, left guard. Might have to move that later on. You know what? Emory Jones, left guard. Okay. Might have to scoot him into center. That's one of my bold predictions, is that Emory Jones could scoot in and play center. We'll see about that. But left guard, okay. Feel pretty good about that. Pretty good. Yeah. I mean, true freshman again. You don't really ever want a true freshman. Y'all, my magnetic helmet slammed to the roof there. It sucks. But you never want a true freshman. But, if you had to roll him out there, okay. Fitzgerald West at center. That's the one where it's like he needs some time. And so does Bo Bordelon. He needs some time. I think both of them will eventually become good players. Bo Bordelon was tiny until like 18 months ago, and then he just exploded in size. He's got a good frame, but he's got to fill it out. Give him some time. We'll keep Bo Bordelon as the one. So Fitzgerald West at center. Tramonte Shorts as your right guard. Okay, no, that you feel okay. That's he should be serviceable. I mean, I don't know if he'll be one of the better half of the players in the SEC, but he won't be the worst right guard in the SEC for sure. And then Miles Frazier at left tackle, who I feel pretty good about at left tackle. My point is that offensive line right there by itself, you can win football games with that by itself. I think I think you'll be all right. Now, you'd like a center really badly on that offensive line. But am I going to sit here and say that that's a 3-8 offensive line? No. No, indeed. No, indeed. You can go 500 in the SEC with that if you've got, other pieces and you have a coach who knows how to coach around your weaknesses. That might be by itself might be better than 3 or 4 offensive lines in the SEC next year. By itself might be. Let's see here. James Richter likes the idea of putting a limit on players for their name. Hey, yeah, the problem, well, and then you're right back to where you started. Okay, so this guy got, 500K, then all the schools could only offer 500K, which sounds fair. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say like $1 million a year. I mean, every school could only offer you $1 million. So, all right, great. Oh, and by the way, it's not the schools, it's businesses. No matter where you go, businesses can only give you $1 million. So pick the one you like. I could see it. I'm not sure legalities around that. That's where I have some trouble. Kenny Fuchs said EATME. I'm afraid to put that on there. That might be some Gen Z reference that us old millennial folk don't understand. I'm a little scared of that one. But I definitely like the effect, James, of where you're talking about there. However, you're still kind of in that conversation of telling players that how and in what way they can get compensated for their image by putting a cap on it. But my God, that would do a lot of good for just like a bidding war. Do you really want a bidding war in college football, free agency type ordeal? I mean, you really don't want that. So that would do tremendous help. I don't know how they do it and how they satisfy all the parties that be with that. Anyways, guys, today was a really low-key fun show. I enjoyed breaking things down. Thank you to our sponsors, Tramonte's and Dead Soxy. If you haven't hit the subscribe button to our channel, please do so. And as a parting gift on your way out, hit that like button. I appreciate your support. Hit that like. Make Mike Scarborough make less fun of me because I want to get more likes than him tomorrow night. Appreciate y'all coming away from LSU basketball game, coming straight into your LSU football fix. We're going to have a fun off season ahead of us. Y'all have a great night.